Today I will be responding to the question, a lot of my problems relate to my childhood. I know I cannot change the past, but how do I learn to accept what happened and take control of my future? I guess I just wanted to say that this is my own experience and it's different for everybody, and this video might not cover it all, so I invite interested and motivated others who would like to share to do so as well. And it's really hard to know exactly what you're talking about in terms of what happened to you during your childhood, but I understand that it can be incredibly triggering, and sometimes I think the specifics don't need to be shared to gain understanding, especially with people you don't know so well. So, speaking from the own stuff that happened to me during my childhood, which I know was certainly better than some people's childhoods and certainly worse than others. I guess to just briefly tell you what I dealt with without being specific, because I am uncomfortable being too specific, and I also think it can be incredibly triggering if it is. I dealt with alcoholism and violence within my family, and that included a great deal of emotional abuse. I dealt with restraining orders between my parents and a very unpretty divorce. I dealt with taunting and teasing by my peers and pretty much being made a social outcast. I did deal with some childhood sort of abuse and violation too. And I don't say these things to get pity, because as I said, I know some people have it worse and some people have it better. But I just want to let you know that you're not alone, and I'm sorry about the things that have happened to you. But I do think it's really great that you've recognized that they're holding you back from progressing, and I do believe that even some of the most horrific things, can't bar you from moving forward, because if the past is that horrible, then you deserve a much better and fulfilling, happy future. It can be really hard to overcome things that happen during childhood alone. I think it's exceptionally important for you to reach out. If you keep all this stuff inside, I think it's really hard to work through. And I would probably suggest speaking to a therapist, because they're trained to deal and help you work through this sort of thing. But sometimes talking to close friends can also be incredibly helpful, and it takes time, and it's not simple. And so I'm not just saying you can go to a therapist for a few sessions and be miraculously better. For some people it takes months, for some people it takes years. But the thing is, if you don't work towards it and you live thinking about your childhood and not being able to move forward, and that's really not a good way to live. And it really, really sucks that it's more difficult for you than other people. But you've got to take that chance and embrace that challenge, because really, I know I say this a lot, but what do you have to lose? I mean, what happened to you is unfortunate, but that doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be loved and accepted for who you are or who you can be, who you want to be, These coping mechanisms that we use to deal with the really difficult trauma, situations, people. I mean, fear prevents us from giving up. those coping mechanisms and for moving on. And ultimately, if we're talking about an eating disorder here and a number of other behaviors, we're talking about something that is so self-damaging. If people have been hurting you, or you have been hurt by something that unfortunately happened to you, then you have to face it, as hard and challenging and difficult and uncomfortable it can be, in order to move on so that you no longer have to feel like this. I mean, as a child, you were young and you're vulnerable, and as an adult, unlike that, you finally have the ability to take control. So please don't blame yourself for anything that happened to you when you were young. And don't blame yourself for how you dealt with it. Blame does not help people move on. It is an unfortunate occurrence, but it's not your fault. And you can move on, and just knowing that staying in that past is going to damage you even more. It is going to hurt you even more. And the people that hurt you, you don't want to let them hurt you anymore. You don't want them playing in your memory every day. And sometimes you have to be wary. I mean, abuse, if you've dealt with any kind of abuse or torment or people acting in ways that just are not acceptable, you have to learn that you can't accept that in your young adult or adult life. I would say be wary of the people around you. Be wary if you're in a relationship in which you're being abused. This doesn't mean that you need to be afraid of being in a relationship or afraid of socializing, afraid of friends. I know for some people, afraid of having a body. That fear sometimes is there, but that fear is really, really hurting you. And if you let that fear prevent you from taking a chance on all these wonderful things, which in the rare occasion end up getting you hurt, then you can never get to experience some of the most wonderful things that life has to offer. Sometimes it is hard to take charge of your life, and even I can't tell you quite how to just get a grasp on things, but I think talking to people, realizing that it is not your fault, and that staying here is not going to help, and you just really need to move forward, is a huge first step. Now, the specific issues are something that have to be worked out, yes, a little more specifically, but they can be. I really do believe that they can be. It takes strength. It may cause anxiety, but I believe that it can be done. This means that, this doesn't mean that you have to forget everything that ever happened to you. You probably won't. It will probably still be there. But if you can learn to work with it, to not let those things grab you for the rest of your life, if you take hold of yourself and don't let those things take hold of you, then you can move forward and upward. And although it's hard to hear and say, you cannot heal your mind with a sick body, and you cannot heal your body with a sick mind. You are a complete person, and those parts, in order to function correctly as a whole, need to heal together and work together. But really, one thing that you need to do, and it's not just one thing, it is a whole series of things, is to work towards a future in which you can gain the self-efficacy to put your defenses down and experience true love, acceptance, and happiness. And you deserve all of those things. One last thing I wanted to mention is that if it seems especially difficult to move forward, or flashbacks and memories keep haunting your mind, those could be symptoms of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I would recommend going to therapy or going to a psychiatrist maybe and getting tested for those things, which sometimes you might need medication in order to feel better, but it is worth it to feel better. And I just wanted to mention that because I had forgot to, and And I think I don't want anyone out there blaming themselves for not being able to get over something on their own, because sometimes it really is more deeply imprinted than that, and professional help really is essential.